Hello, welcome everyone to The Distraction here on Fightful. I am Jeremy Lambert, joined today by a very special guest, the editor-in-chief of Orange Crush, Adam Abdalla. Adam
Correct.
Abdalla, how you
That's,
doing, man?
I'm good, man. Thank you for having me. Big fan.
I appreciate it. I appreciate you joining us. People know the Orange Crush, the magazine and the branding and everything. They don't always know the man behind it. I had to sign you off air. I was like, do you want your real name out there? That it's Adam and not Orange Crush, the brand on here. And you're cool with Orange Crush, so I
Kayfabe,
appreciate
brother.
that. Yes, gotta keep the kayfabe. Exactly. I appreciate you joining me today. I want to start with the Indie Hall of Fame, which is presented by you guys and JCW, because yesterday it was announced that CM Punk is going to be part of this as he is inducting Dave Prazak. So let me know how all of this kind of came together with the whole Indie Hall of Fame and then now securing CM Punk.
Yeah, well, in terms of the Hall of Fame in general, as many people know, my good friend Brett Lauderdale and GCW have managed to sell out the Hammerstein Ballroom on January 23rd. I believe the running count, from looking at WrestleTix at least, is 2,005 tickets sold. They reconfigured the building to essentially allow the largest crowd for wrestling that's been there in at least the last decade. And with that, and with this kind of confluence of independent wrestling fans coming in from throughout the country, GCW, Brett, us, we wanted to create a moment to help honor the legends of independent wrestling that help kind of, usher in a moment like this that could, help make it possible. So, we did a lot of scouting for venues within the city, which is tough for a banquet type event in Manhattan on a Saturday night. But we found great partners at the Cutting Room, kind of in the 30s on the east side. And we're really excited to induct the first class of the Indie Hall of Fame.
How'd you guys decide on the names for this? So we've got Jerry Lynn, Homicide, Ruckus, Dave Prazak, Tracy Smothers, and Lufisto. And some of the names will stick out. Like Homicide, I think, is just absolute indie legend by every sense of the term. Jerry Lynn, people are gonna think of him more as like an ECW guy and maybe not a quote unquote indie guy. So how'd you guys come up with the names for inductees?
Well, I think some of it is availability. Some of it is really just trying to have a diverse class of inductees that represent different moments in indie wrestling history, that have their own audiences that need to be honored. I mean, Jerry Lynn, yes, is most famous for his matches with Rob Van Dam and ECW, but previous to that, in the early '90s, he really revolutionized the high-flying style of professional wrestling with matches with the Lightning Kid, who people probably know better as X-Pac, Sean Waltman, who was inducting him, as well as Sabu on kind of big NWA independent shows, Global Wrestling Federation. Jerry was in countless Japanese indie promotions as well, like Michinoku Pro. So, everyone who's been inducted, I consider to be an indie wrestling legend. And they have a unique history. And if it's more recent, people are probably really familiar with the body of work on the indies. If there's someone who have kind of a more historical influence, or they may know as being more kind of present in the big leagues, I mean, if you look at it a little bit, you'll see that they also had a lasting impact and body of work on the independent circuit.
How did CM Punk come up? Because he's got ties to pretty much all of these people. I mean, he's inducting Prazak, who managed him and of course worked at ROH as a commentator, but his ties with Tracy Smothers, ties with Homicide, he's an indie legend himself, honestly.
Yeah, well, Dave Prazak, I would say, is probably one of the most influential figures in the history of independent wrestling, as a booker, as a manager, as a legendary commentator for Ring of Honor, IW Mid-South, and others. He really touched so many people. I think his legacy will probably be defined by the work that he did in running Shimmer, which really turned out probably, so many hugely successful and influential women wrestlers over the years, including some who were at the very top of professional wrestling currently, including Becky Lynch, for example. So, Dave is absolutely beloved, and we really wanted to find someone that he had a genuine and historic relationship with that also conveyed the gravity of his contribution. And, we reached out to Punk. We thought it was a long shot, but, given the relationship with Dave, we thought it might be possible. And, he was very gracious and accepting, and we're really excited for him to come show up.
And it's a big weekend for GCW in general, with the Hammerstein show on the 23rd, and then of course the Hall of Fame on the 22nd. I'm very excited. I'm very excited to watch everything and how it's gonna unfold, because that Hammerstein show looks like it's loading up, and I know there's more announcements coming. Eddie Kingston and AJ Gray are gonna beat the shit out of each other. That's gonna be tremendous. What are you looking forward to on the Hammerstein show?
Well, the whole card has not really been announced yet. You can infer a lot of what might be on the show from some of the angles that have been run on social media. One match I'm super psyched for right now is the World on Lucha 6-man tag that Brett has put together. Somebody who's really kind of influential behind the scenes at GCW also is Gringo Loco, who works with Brett to identify some of the best lucha talents in the world and bring them to the company. And we're really excited for that match. I believe it's Gringo Loco, Ares, Bandito, ASF, Flamita on the heel side. And there's one more person that escapes me. But, historically, GCW, those lucha 6-man tags have been epic. There was one in Chicago at a show called 2 Cup Stuffed with Black Label Pro that was just absolutely incredible a few years back. So I think that's going to blow everyone's socks off. I think there's going to be some amazing stuff on the pre-party show with Pabst Blue Ribbon that people are going to be surprised that they're able to watch for free. So keep your eyes open for that. But yeah, I'm just I'm excited for the whole thing and see how it unravels. I don't know what's on the card officially. Brett doesn't tell me until it's announced. But I
the match is Gringo Loco, Ares, and Demonic Flamita against Bandito, Laredo Kid, and ASF.
Oh, yeah.
And
Laredo Kid.
Yep. Yes.
Yeah. Awesome.
The other announced match by the time we're recording this is Jonathan Gresham against Blake Christian. And of course, by the time this comes out, I'm sure there will be more matches announced. And AJ Gray just called out Eddie Kingston on social media. Eddie Kingston just did an interview with Battleground saying as long as he gets the clearance, he's going to be there to smack around AJ Gray. So it looks like that's setting up. I don't want to jump the gun and say it's official.
Well, I hope so. He's on the cover of my magazine. So,
well, let's talk about that. Good segue. Let's talk about that. Volume 3 of Orange Crush magazine. This combines, it combines the art of wrestling, like the actual photography side of art of wrestling, and then the words of wrestling. But also there's a lot of just general art that I was very fascinated to learn about when I was looking through it, of the one feature with the slapstick art and everything. How did this idea to put all of this together really come together for you?
Okay, so my shoot job, so to speak, is that I own a PR and marketing firm that's fairly well known in the art world called Cultural Council. Okay. So I work very closely with world-class artists, museums, foundations, galleries, as well as big corporate clients that do campaign with major artists and designers. So professionally, for the last 16 years, contemporary art has been my 9 to 5. So I have a pretty, deep knowledge of the space. Concurrently, I've been a psychotic wrestling fan for probably 31 years since I was 5 years old. So I've always been pretty good at tracking what contemporary artists are using wrestling as a subject matter. I collect some of it. Behind me, I have this painting that I found of Kenta Kobashi giving the burning hammer to Misawa that I found at an art fair in Los Angeles about 3 years ago. Randomly, while I was actually putting together the first magazine, I was like, oh, well, this is perfect. So, it only became natural as I became more involved as a kind of supporter and sponsor of independent wrestling, to try to think about how I can contribute to the scene in a way that was additive, that created work for artists in the wrestling space. Wrestling photographers, unless you get a traveling gig with AEW, or I don't even know if WWE hires externally, to be honest. There's very little money to be made. Promotions typically don't pay photographers to shoot. They allow them the space to go there and then sell the images. But I saw a lot of really great work coming out of that space, a lot of like compelling, candid photography. And, I wanted to be a conduit to help facilitate more opportunities for those artists. I also wanted to create a dialogue where there wasn't this separation between high and low, like, the wrestling world, and then, museum quality works about wrestling. I wanted to put them in one space and mix them up and see what we can concoct. Another aspect of it, that kind of inspired is that, like, before COVID, before I had a kid, during COVID, I was really traveling the world pretty hardcore following professional wrestling. I've been to Tokyo Dome 3 times. I've been to Budokan like 7 times. I've been to Arena Mexico 4 or 5 times. I've traveled the continental United States for shows, both with JCW and other major shows. I went to, Tennessee to Wombat to see what it was like down there. I've gone to kind of every major wrestling market in the US and every major indie. So, part of it was trying to convey the experience of all the different cultures and spaces and aesthetics of wrestling into one package. And that was like part of my early inspiration. And I was like, oh, this is going to be a great live event product that I can sell at like a concession stands, like GCW shows. And then as soon as I went to the printers, COVID hit. So I had to figure out how to remarket the whole thing as a, through social media and like build a Twitter following, direct marketing, kind of strategy. But that was like how we got to this point.
So in volume 3, I was looking it over, and there's great features on like Eddie Kingston, Orange Cassidy, people, the names My 2 favorite ones, though, and I want to discuss these 2 with you, was Barney versus Fox, because I don't really know anything about Matthew Barney, and some of these photos are just incredible, and some I'm not big into art. I'm just not really my style. Don't know a whole lot about it, but some of these photos, the stuff that is done here, I mean, people just kind of have to see it for themselves to see what he's put together. So how did the Barney versus Fox, like how did this feature come together?
Okay, so Charlie Fox is an amazing art critic and also creative director out of the UK. I've always admired his work, and one day out of the blue, he sent me an email. He's like, "Hey man, I really love Orange Crush. People don't know this, but I'm a huge wrestling fan." And he had this idea where he wanted to write a critical essay about how he was inspired by the 1998 King of the Ring match between The Undertaker and Mankind. And I'm like, that's cool, but it's a little granular given your level of access. Like, is there maybe like a major artist interview that we could put together? And he's like, oh yeah, like, I'm tight with Matthew Barney. Maybe we could do him. And I'm like, Matthew Barney? Shit, like, let's get Matthew Barney. And Matthew Barney's relationship to wrestling it's loose. He was not involved in professional wrestling, but he was an amateur wrestler in high school, and he incorporated a lot of the aesthetics and even like physical elements of wrestling into some of his early works in video, as well as kind of, notions about the body and bodybuilding and things like that. So it was just kind of I don't want to say a happy accident, but it was like through the nexus of contacts I have in the worlds of art and literature, sometimes kind of unravel these interesting crossover where people are like, love wrestling. They love this like quirky, cross section that we present. And then we've had really good luck getting major artists to like say yes to participate in something that probably like 20 years ago they would never even consider. In the last issue 2, Raymond Pettibon, who is kind of one of my favorite contemporary artists, whose paintings and drawings go for like millions of dollars at auction houses. I was able to do a long form interview with him because he's been a lifelong professional wrestling fan, and some of his work incorporate portraits of like Andre the Giant and the Iron Sheik. So you sometimes you're surprised by who's into wrestling.
I was about to say, so you mentioned your shoot job is in the art world. Is there, like, how much crossover is there, not only as art people who enjoy wrestling, but I want to get into the Lee Moriarty stuff here in a second, but a lot of wrestlers who also kind of go into that side, whether it be drawings, paintings, photography, whatever it might be there.
I mean, wrestlers are extremely creative people. I think naturally. to want to do this, but also be able to storytell on that level with their bodies. And I find it amazing sometimes how much creativity can live in a locker room, whether it's WWE or AEW or MLW, and how little of that sometimes translates in the way that wrestling is presented on television. It comes off a lot of the time very corporate and synthesized. Lee Moriarty is a great example. That guy is an amazing talent in the ring. I think he really showcased an artistry when it comes to technical wrestling that is really great. I mean, demonstrates a lot of grace. But he's also a very talented designer, painter, and I've had a lot of conversations with him in the lead up to this just about what he wants in terms of being able to develop both areas of his practice. And I think this gave an opportunity to show the world what he's interested in, what he does. He's a photographer. He can digitally animate. He can draw. He can paint. Same with Leo Rush. You got Leo Rush on TV, basically being portrayed as kind of a wrestler / like talent manager. The guy is an incredible musician. He just released an awesome album at the end of last year. He's been making music and even in JCW has incorporated, incredible dance and performance and lighting into his entrances. Like he's a real creative mind. And I think there's a lot of people in wrestling with that kind of level of creativity. I'd love to be able to showcase more of it, but even more so, I'd love to be able to see it more on a larger stage than my magazine, to be perfectly honest.
Do you think wrestling almost misses some of the crossover? Because everyone talks about, oh, we need the crossover, we need the mainstream attention and everything. Like wrestling is very comic book in that there are a lot of universes, there are a lot of threads, the conventions, the tie-ins are very much there. But when you just watch wrestling, they try to lean more towards sport than comic, it seems a lot of times. And I feel like, and maybe this is just me, but I feel like they're missing who they're actually trying to appeal to by going after one type of fan when like there's all these comic book fans out there where there's just a lot of similarities between wrestling and comics that they can hit that market that I don't think they're quite hitting yet.
It's a generational thing too. I think a lot of older wrestling fans are still caught up in this notion of like wrestling as sport. A good example is the story that we did on Orange Cassidy, kind of like really exploring his phenomenon. I think a lot of older fans and people who also relate to that like Jim Cornette mentality are like, this guy's taking a piss on wrestling, which should be portrayed as real, and it's like missing the point. And then I think a lot of people in kind of Gen Z are like, oh, I relate to this guy. I get what he's doing. I totally understand the act, and it's translated in terms of the demos and the ratings, in terms of the merchandise sales. I think that's like a very minute case study of what you're talking about. That I think if people who wrote wrestling and presented professional wrestling thought about the way that stories are told with the same care as someone who writes a television show or a movie with a similar budget, there would be, I think, an opportunity to grow the audience and also to present a more compelling product. I think about this when people are talking about WWE getting sold all the time. It's like, okay, if WWE gets sold to NBC Universal, which is probably the most likely candidate, right? Are NBC Universal at that point going to start like more closely looking at the creative of these shows and being like, oh, we need to bring our TV writers to kind of like make this more cogent for a larger audience? Or are they just happy like counting the checks at the end of the day? I don't know.
I mean, they've got 100 TV writers there now. It's just everything gets tore up the last minute. And maybe under NBC Universal, it wouldn't get tore up the last minute. And look, I love wrestling as a sport. I think there's certainly room for that. But I do think for larger scale, like you can kind of appeal to more of the quote unquote nerdcore fan base. And that's something I think that maybe conscious or not, like, by doing this, by presenting a lot these wrestlers as something other than just, hey, here's a wrestler, like you're doing that. Like you're showing a different side of Lee Moriarty, because this was my other favorite feature in the magazine. Like I love Lee Moriarty as a wrestler. I know there's more to him than just wrestling by reading interviews and stuff from him, mainly on like the music side and the stuff that he's into there. But like, I didn't realize he was such a talented artist and everything he does when it comes to art. And I think showcasing that and needs to be showcased more like through television than just, hey, here's great wrestler.
Wrestling lacks personality profiles, you know?
Yes.
AEW used to invest a lot into it. I feel like in their kind of like countdown shows, there seems to be a little bit less now, but they probably just have more demands because they have more television to fill. But, you know, there certainly could be more room for people to breathe and for people to find out more about, you know, the character, not only the character, but like the individual behind the character and what makes them human and relatable, you know? I feel like a lot of portrayals of wrestlers these days are a little too two-dimensional. So you don't have that deep layer of sympathy or, you know, or relating that you would a lot of the folks that we grew up with and really got you know, I think a lot more kind of screen time with and background packages, things like that. Even on the main event level too.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with that. I wish
think about those Jim Ross interviews,
right.
From the late 90s. You know, you don't see, I mean, even when AEW does those, there may be like 90 seconds, right? Like back in the day, those were like appointment viewing as part of, you know, Raw. Like that was like almost like the main event in a certain way.
Like, a lot of the good stuff nowadays is kind of like on social media and on YouTube and everything, because that's where wrestlers they have a little bit more freedom to sort of get their stories over and fill in some gaps and whatnot. But that's not always on television. And so like, as much wrestling as there is out there, you can't expect your audience to watch all of these YouTube shows and these social media clips that are put out there.
And listen, to circle back to GCW show, I have to say, Giancarlo Dittamo, who is a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
The commercial that he put together for the Hammerstein Ballroom show was able, I think, to convey like the personality of 20 wrestlers and their faults, their thoughts, their hopes and dreams, and you know what's been some of their biggest obstacles in like a 2-minute commercial, better than, you know, two companies with, you know, millions and millions and millions of dollars to produce content. So it's not a question even of like writing talent. It's just thinking about how you present people and how you appeal to people's emotions in a more, I think, sincere way.
And Giancarlo is fantastic. The stuff he obviously the relationship he has with Janela and those videos that they would do for spring break and everything. And that's really one of the things that like put spring break on the map and made it into the event that it's become. Is there any wrestlers that you have yet to work with on the magazine that you would like to try to explore a little bit deeper?
Oh man, yeah, a lot. I have this dream. I have this dream of, you know, post-COVID, when things are like a lot more manageable, to bring a crew of some of these very talented photographers that we've used for all of our issues to like Japan and do an issue like really looking at the talent there more specifically. I have a really good relationship with the folks at Hao Ming in Tokyo. They carry the magazine. They're big fans. You know, we've highlighted some artists that they're close with in past issues. So that's like one idea that I've kicked around. I mean, there's also obvious people that I just like deeply admire, and I haven't had the guts or like the, you know, the timing hasn't been right to approach. Like a CM Punk, for example, is definitely one who I'm super interested in. You know, Bryan Danielson, probably my favorite wrestler, you know, of all time, somebody I've watched in person since 2002 when he was in Ring of Honor. I think could really share a lot of interesting insight on his creative process, because it's so nuanced. I mean, in terms of his physical performance in the ring. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people, and there's people on the indies too that I definitely want to do stuff with. Like Treehouse Lee, I think is somebody who aesthetically, you know, has an amazing look, amazing sense of fashion, interest in art and music. He's somebody like issue 4 I would probably definitely want to do something on. I mean, there's a lot. I don't want to give away too much because, you know, things happen kind of organically. But, you know, I think we have, you know, I think there are many more Orange Crushes to be made over the years.
Well, that is definitely good to hear. Because again, I love what you're doing with the magazine and bringing personality to a lot of these wrestlers that you might not get to see on television. And there's a bunch of different covers. There's 3 different that you can get: Orange Cassidy, Thunder Rosa, Eddie Kingston. But the Eddie Kingston, who he's been one of my favorites for a while, and it's so great to see him on a national spotlight now. And just every interview this man does, it's just more and more relatable and more like you get to see Eddie Kingston every week. That is a guy who is not lacking in the personality when he's on television. You
Not
know who
lacking
Eddie
the
Kingston
personality,
is.
but also goes back to that conversation that we talked about earlier. Like, he's relatable, man.
Yes.
He's real, right? It's like, I don't know how relatable he is, like, thinking about it in hindsight, but like Dusty Rhodes, you know, like, you see Eddie Kingston and you see yourself, you know, fighting your demons, fighting for the things that you care about, trying to get respect at work, you know, after like slugging it out for like 20 years. Like, Eddie Kingston's a fucking man. And I'm really honored by the fact that we're able to profile him in this issue. Mike Johnson did a really great job capturing his voice, I think, in the piece, and you know, quoting him, you know, really kind of succinctly throughout. And we got some really incredible photos. It's also interesting because there's a cool thread. You know, Ryan Loco shot the piece, who also shot our John Moxley shoot from issue 2, which was like wildly popular because of that photo of John sitting backstage with the bottle of Jack Daniels, which didn't, you know, obviously age that well, but you know, so be able to keep that thread amongst like these close friends, I think, is cool too. And we catch Eddie in many different states, like Eddie in training at American Top Team, Eddie, you know, just drinking his morning coffee and smoking a cigarette, Eddie watching, you know, Misawa Kawada on his living room TV. Like, it's like you see casual Eddie, you see Eddie hard at work, you kind of see the different dimensions of Eddie.
And Ryan Loco is someone who I've followed his stuff through his time shooting MMA, and just always been very talented photographer. So I love the shots he got of Moxley, and now the shots with Eddie as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, you know, we have 2 other covers, and if we want to talk about all 3. The second was Orange Cassidy, who is somebody that from day one was like, duh, I should definitely do Orange Cassidy for Orange Trust, you know, OC for OC. You know, so I was able to connect with him. Zia Hilty, who is a wrestling photographer who's been in the scene here in the Northeast for a long time, especially kind of like in the, you know, I'm not gonna, like, ex-Chikara, you know, kind of Ring of Honor crowd, you know, like people like Bryce Remsburg and Chuck Taylor and folks like that have, you know, always been very kind of close to her and promoted her work. So it was really exciting to be able to give her a cover opportunity. She really nailed it, taking these really kind of amazing neon photos of Orange Cassidy outside a diner and kind of in Philadelphia. And we had a great art writer named Dan DeRay kind of delve in to his like personality profile. It's actually a really interesting article because Dan's not a wrestling writer, so he was able to contextualize and explain Orange Cassidy to someone who may not completely understand like what the gimmick is or what he's doing or what it's about in a very succinct way. So it's probably my favorite article in the magazine, I would say.
And I love the photos of Orange Cassidy, and you're right, the cover is tremendous with the neon, the background with the neon lights going off behind him. And you mentioned Eddie Kingston, you see him in all of these different settings and at work, at home, relaxing and everything. And then you have Orange Cassidy, and it's almost like the same pose in every photo, but there's just so much personality that comes out of him, whether it's the positioning, the background, whatever it might be. Like, that's just a guy who, he doesn't give you much, but what he does give you kind of says everything, and it's tremendous. And then the Thunder Rosa cover is and feature is the other one.
Yeah, Thunder Rosa. Not only did we profile Thunder Rosa, but we took a look at all of the work that she's been doing at Mission Pro Wrestling in San Antonio. Michael Watson drove down there from Iowa in the midst of like a horrible storm. Actually, it was like everything went wrong except for the quality of his photos. Ultimately, you know, like, he put together an incredible set of photography. We were able to probably squeeze in about 12 pages, but there's so much more that exists that I hope to do more with it over time. You know, there's so many wrestlers kind of under Thunder Rosa's wing who are incredible and like almost ready to kind of hit the national stage, as well as wrestlers that people are familiar with who go down and kind of work in that promotion as well. So we were able to capture, I think, a lot of the humanity behind the scenes of what that locker room is like, what really Rose's relationship's like with her son as well. And Emily Pratt wrote that piece for us, who is somebody who's written for each issue of the magazine. I think did a really wonderful job.
Yeah, Emily Pratt is tremendous, and I'm just looking at the photos. Her with her son, and I know they just had a mixed tag team match in Mission Pro. It's great to see, because I don't know how many people, I think they know now, but they know that Thunder Rosa like has a son and everything, because it's not something that's super widely talked about. But and everything she's doing at Mission Pro is fantastic, getting those women opportunities not only to work there, but bringing them to AEW Dark and everything is just great work with what she's doing. The other big venture that you got going on is Jersey Championship Wrestling. They had a revival with GCW, and you are the co-owner of that. You guys are doing shows in conjunction with GCW, and also airing them on YouTube. And how has that been going?
It's been really fun, man. So, Brett and GCW has such a wide talent pool of workers that they, like to use on their shows. I mean, obviously they tour nationally. So there's a lot of opportunity for for wrestlers from kind of different regions to participate in GCW. He wanted to create a second shingle, essentially, where we could focus on some of the top talents from the Northeast, as well as some of the best young talents from around the country to come in and work with them. And it's been a lot of fun. We piggybacked on most of the major GCW shows in Atlantic City. We do the matinee. We've also done a number of kind of like theme shows, like throwbacks to some of the gimmicks from like my childhood. We did Battle Bowl. We did a series of survivals, which you can glean what that's inspired by. We did a Christmas show with Santa Claus. We did a Secret Santa gauntlet. So, it's an opportunity to develop and take a look at some more younger talent and how they're coming along. It's an opportunity to really highlight some of the best, kind of some of the legends from the Northeast and New Jersey. Everyone from the Grim Reaper to Azrael to Crowbar, Slayer, who's like a deep cut, awesome indie legend from the area. So it's a mix of nostalgia with some of the best kind of young talent today. And it's been really, and it's not as high stakes as GCW in terms of like death matches or anything like that, but we've been able to do some cool stuff. I mean, the coolest thing we probably did was, I don't know how familiar you are with them, but we're able to unite Everett Connors and Charli Evans.
Yes.
I don't know if you want me to tell that story or if you want to give a little background.
Oh, you can tell the story, but this was I'm not like super familiar with the full on story, but this was the big thing that blew up on the internet when they were able to unite. So I will let you tell that story, because
I'll tell you exactly what happened. So Everett Connors, let me know his nickname, was one of our top stars. He was in the midst of a like really hot feud with Charles Mason, who's kind of our top heel. While this was going on, during the pandemic, Everett and Charli Evans began a very quickly budding online relationship. Charli, I think, saw Everett on Fight Forever wrestle Joey Janela, which is also a show that we co-presented with Brett. And immediately she's like, "Who's that guy? Like, I want to talk to him." And they started talking online, and they fell in love. But Charli was not able to come to the United States because of the COVID mandates in Australia. And, they just kept it up online, and they had plans to meet in person probably, early this year, right? At the same time, we were building up for our kind of blow-off cage match between Charles Mason and Everett Connors. And I was thinking about the perfect ending for that. I was like, what if we got Charli to come to the U.S. and surprise Everett, who they'd never met in person, even though they're like in this really passionate online relationship, and basically save the day from this guy's goons. So Brett and I and John Carlo, we all kind of got on it. I talked to Charli to see what the government was telling her. I was able to write her a letter to present to the Australian government and get a travel visa to come here for 3 months. And we kind of did 2 reveals. We did a shoot surprise where we brought Charli to Giancarlo's apartment in Jersey City. And then that same day, we had sent Everett Connors to Sam Roberts' podcast, which is kind of like in lower upstate New York, to shoot in his studio. And then he said, well, on the way to Atlantic City, stop by Giancarlo's apartment, shower, clean up, and we want to cut some more promos for the Charles Mason match. And when he showed up, we kind of like set up this scene on the roof of his condo or his rental building where the New York City skyline was in the background. There's like a fire pit. And, surprise, you meet the love of your life for the first time. So we shot a little mini documentary about that process. And then we kind of redid it in kayfabe for our main event. So at the end of the cage match, Connors was handcuffed to the cage and was being beat down by Charles Mason and his goons, Bam Sullivan and Slade. And all of a sudden, this hooded figure, she ran out of a hoodie with a COVID mask on, with a 2x4 wrapped in barbed wire, basically came out, cleared house, hit a backdrop driver on Charles Mason, and then Everett won the match. And then afterwards, she revealed herself. And there were everyone who's at our show kind of know the backstory between Charli and Everett, and how they have this kind of like, not unrequited, but this love that was impossible because they were across the world. So the girls were crying. It was really awesome, real moment, and something that probably is one of the things I'm most proud of that we've done at JCW, being able to like blur the lines of like real life and kayfabe, but also to like actually get these 2 kids who were in love together, and now they're traveling to Europe together on tour in the UK.
So I remember seeing this all over my timeline. It was the same weekend, same day, I think, as Moxley and Gage. So it was a big thing. And like outside of Moxley and Gage, like this was the biggest thing on my timeline. And I didn't know really anything going in. And I looked back and I saw, oh, they fell in love and on social media, essentially. I was like, as someone who loves love, I enjoy stuff like that. And then for you guys to unite them like that was cool to see. Again, anything that has to do with love and 2 people coming together like that, I'm a big fan of it. Now, is there plans, and maybe it's already out there and I missed it, but the mini doc of their first meeting, is that coming out?
Oh, it's out. It's out.
Okay.
If you look online on the GCW YouTube, it's just called Charli. Giancarlo edited and shot the video. I mean, we shot it like, hidden camera style at the moment, or not hidden. What's the other show? Not hidden camera, but candid camera style.
Yeah.
So that exists if you go on the GCW YouTube, but we released it like probably like a month after the initial, because we had to edit it and kind of make it proper. It's about 5 minutes. But yeah, I was there too. I was hiding on the roof. I was just actually distracting. I was distracting Everett while they were like setting up all like the mics on the roof with Charli. Alley Catch was actually there helping as well.
What is the next big event for JCW?
The next big event for JCW will be at the Showboat in Atlantic City on February 19th at 2 p.m. It's part of GCW's Fuckery Weekend, I believe it's being called by Brett. I can curse on here, right?
Yes, yeah, you're good.
So that's our next big show. We're working out the card right now. Tickets will go on sale actually this Friday.
Are you guys gonna be part of the collective?
There's talks for a special show involving JCW during the collective. I cannot reveal the details yet.
Fair enough. Guys, Orange Crush Volume 3 is out now. Everyone can go check that out. Again, there's 1 of 3 covers. You can get Eddie Kingston, Thunder Rosa, Orange Cassidy. Just as we've talked about, so much good stuff. I think if you're a wrestling fan, you'll learn a lot about some of your favorite wrestlers. And if you're not an art fan, you'll learn a lot about art, because I was very fascinated the last stuff that was in there.
That's the hope,
Yes.
Let's bring them together.
Yeah, man, it was. I not an art person, but man, some of those photos and the way I've always been fascinated by it, just because it's creative, and as someone who does writing and content creating, I love different types of creativity. But seeing some of the stuff in there, I was like, man, these people. There's some talented stuff, and again, learning about different wrestlers, Lee Moriarty being the biggest one, about like their passions just outside of wrestling is always fun for me. Adam, I appreciate. Oh, go ahead.
I was saying one of the things that we're trying to do, the last point, is not only kind of push the magazine, but with each issue, we're trying to create opportunities for wrestling fans to actually own some of this art in an affordable and accessible way. So we do print programs with a number of the photographers. Like for the last one, we did prints with Ryan Loco and Michael Watson and Nick Karp, and we'll be doing that again for this issue. So stay tuned.
As you guys can go to orangecrush.art to check everything out. And you can follow Adam and Orange Crush at Orange Crush Art on social media. Adam, anything else you want to plug?
That's all. Indie Hall of Fame, January 22nd. Tickets are still on sale. CM Punk is going to be there. January 23rd, Hammerstein Ballroom, sold out, but you can watch it on Fight TV. And then Orange Crush 3, pre-sale, available now at orangecrush.art.
Adam, I appreciate your time today. I appreciate everybody tuning in. We'll